Hi there. With COVID still being around and meetings being prohibited or certainly pretty difficult, I thought it may be not a bad idea to put a little video together just to give you some idea of what to expect on your wedding day. So let's start with the first and most important thing, and that is what is called the marriage schedule. Because without the marriage schedule, your wedding really can't happen. So how do you get the marriage schedule? Well, you get it by approaching the local registry office. Now, that's not your local registry office. It could be, but it's the registry office in the district where the wedding is taking place. So it's important to identify, whatever your venue is, in what district does that reside, and then that lets you know which registry office you should be dealing with. Now, you cannot do that any earlier than 3 months before. You should not do it any later than 1 month before. So that's your window. Whenever your wedding is, look back 3 months, put a wee note in your diary and say, I should make contact with the registrar. Now, that will be looking for your details. It will also be looking for my details, who I am, and I think they'll list me as the Reverend Ian Miller, former minister at Bonhill Parish Church, and if they ask for the denomination to which I belong, it is in fact Church of Scotland. If they're looking for my full name, it is in fact Ian Hunter Miller. First and foremost, the marriage schedule. Don't forget that. It has happened, and I must have done over 5,000 weddings, and there's been 7 or 8 where people have turned up without their marriage schedule. Staggering, but it does happen. So please, please, please make sure that you've got that. I thought it would be a good idea maybe to show you exactly what might happen in the day of your wedding, the sort of choreography, if you like. Now, you will appreciate this is a church, but every venue has certain things for a wedding, and one is seats on either side, and another is an aisle down through which the bride and her bridesmaids will make their entrance. Whenever I arrive, I'll immediately make contact with the groom and the best man or best men and indicate to them where they should be standing. And so, if you imagine the aisle, that's the aisle coming down here, if you were to divide it in two, then the groom should be standing slightly to the right of that imaginary line, with his best men, or best man, best men beside him. I would also expect that they would sit on the front seat on that side. Now, they won't be sitting there until we know the wedding's just about to start. If it's a church, I'll be meeting you outside, bringing you into the vestibule and taking it from there. And it's really the same thing with a hotel. The staff will bring you in, and I will speak to the bride and her dad and the bridesmaids just before entering to be with groom and best man. So there we are. They're outside, I'm in here, the guys are sitting there, we're all ready to go, and the cue will be when the music starts, I will say, please be upstanding, everybody will stand up, and the guys will come out and hit the spots right here. It would normally be bridesmaids first, and then bride and whoever's giving her away, her father or whoever, at the very end. Can I suggest to you that if there's, say, 4 bridesmaids, that bridesmaid 4 should enter first, and she should be right down at the bottom before bridesmaid 3 comes in. And bridesmaid 3 should be right down the bottom before bridesmaid 2, bridesmaid 2 at the bottom before bridesmaid 1, and bridesmaid 1 at the bottom before the bride and her giver away, if you like, makes entrance. Now, whenever the bridesmaids come in, if they can go down and turn off to the left so that there's space for the bride, and I'll just say her father, to come in, so that eventually the bride lands beside the groom, where she should be. So we can ensure that happens if the bridesmaids move off, and when father has left, then they will join up with her. The father can either just come in, turn on his heels and go, or he can come in, give her a wee kiss, shake hands with the groom and go. But if he doesn't go, I've got to get rid of him. And the way I get rid of him is by saying, who gives this woman's hand in marriage? He should say, I do. But even if he doesn't, don't worry, I'll answer for him and say, it'll be yourself, and I'll get rid of him. And so at the end of the day, looking down that aisle from the back, your guests should see from that side, best man or best men, groom, bride, and bridesmaids strung along in a single line. However, should you wish, sometimes what people will do is have the best man, the groom, the bride, and the chief bridesmaid as a quartet, and almost at the other side to have the groomsmen and the other bridesmaids in a sort of mirror position. But I would leave that up to you. So I've got you all down at the front, and as I say, the guys on this side, there's the groom, there's the bride, best man, chief bridesmaids, and if you wish, as I say, the other bridesmaids over there, and any groomsmen over there. Or they can just simply be in a single straight line. I will go through later just exactly what would happen from there on in, but that in a sense is the choreography of it all. And obviously if you know what's happening, it makes it look neater and tidier. So to recap, you arrive, I get the guys to sit at the front. They know that their first cue is, please be upstanding, and that's when they move forward. I meet with the bride and her group at the back and make sure they're in the order they should be. When I say please be upstanding, the boys move forward and the bridesmaids start making their way in. Can I say, take your time, bridesmaids, nice and slow, make it sedate, make there be a good gap between them. So if it's four first, then 3, then 2, then 1, then of course the bride and her father. But eventually we all land up here. Now, let's skip to the end, and we would be signing the marriage schedule. Normally in a venue, it would be in front of people, so just imagine it's on the table there, and we would sign the marriage schedule. At the end of it, we would obviously have to make sure everybody's out in a decent order. So can I say, first should be the groom and the bride, and the groom should be on this side. If you just remember, guys, your sword arm should be free. So groom on this side, bride on that side, and all the bridesmaids would follow behind the bride, and all the groomsmen or best man would follow behind the groom. Now, in many weddings, if it's only one best man, it's groom and bride, best man, chief bridesmaid, and the other bridesmaids pairing up at the back. Although on some occasions, they either get a groomsman or the stewards to follow on. So we've got a guy on this side and a bridesmaid on that side, but that's really up to you. So whenever that happens, whenever we sign the marriage schedule, we're getting ready to go out, if you're part of this group, then you come up and join us. Whenever you're ready, music will start again. Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding, and the whole wedding party make their way through out for the photographs, followed by the guests. I hope that makes sense. Now, let's have a wee run through as to exactly what would happen at the marriage ceremony. First and foremost, can I say, it is your wedding. It is not my wedding, it is your wedding. And I would say that I've never been asked to do something that I've been unable to do. And that's pretty staggering when I think of all the weddings I've done. So people have different ideas, and I certainly would be absolutely as accommodating as I can to make sure that your wedding is exactly what you wish. However, if you don't give me any instructions, let me tell you what I would normally do, and then we can take it from there and negotiate from there on in. So, I've got you in everybody's standing, and I would say, please be seated. And that would apply to everybody bar the folks at the front. That's yourselves. I would say a few words of welcome, and then I would set the scene. And that's probably a kind of lighter thing, where I would seek to engage with you, maybe talk a little bit about you. And eventually, at the end of that, and that would be 2 or 3 minutes, there would be a short prayer of thanksgiving for you and your families, because in many ways they have contributed to the kind of people that you are. So we would do that. And also, if appropriate, only if appropriate, and you will know if there's any of your immediate family maybe who have passed on and you would like them mentioned at that point, then I can do so. Might be a grandparent or whatever, but you would need to tell me that. I realise for many it's a sensitive thing. They think it can be emotional, but other people think differently and say that would be nice. That would be nice if my grandmother was mentioned. So there we are. After the prayer, I would say to the bride and groom, let's call them John and Mary, nice common names. I would say, as a seal to the vows that you're about to take, will you hold each other by the right hand? Now, you would do that, and because you need both hands, bride, if you do have your bouquet still at that time, please pass it on to the bridesmaid. Now, you may have done that before, that's fine. As soon as you arrive down, you may have got rid of it. But if not, if you still got it, you get rid of it at that point. Thus holding hands, I would put to you the vow. And I can do that in one of 2 ways. I can either do it as a question. Do you, John, take Mary to be your wife? Do you promise and covenant to be a loving, faithful and loyal husband to her for as long as you both shall live? And the answer would simply be, I do. Right? And the same, do you, Mary, take John, blah, blah, blah. The alternative to that is that you repeat the vows, and we would do it in 7 chunks. So starting again, we'll go the other way. I, Mary. I, Mary, take you, John, to be my husband. I promise and covenant to be a loving, faithful, loyal wife to you for as long as we both shall live. That would be the 7 chunks. And I would be a bit slower than I am just now, and you would just repeat after me. Third option is that you write your own vows, and that's great. Or sometimes people want to do an I do and make a short statement to one another, in which case that statement would be a bit different. What you will promise her is not necessarily the same as what she will promise you, if that makes sense. So there's the options. 1, you simply do I do. 2, you repeat the vows. 3, you write your own vows. Or 4, do a simple I do and then make a statement to one another. Whenever that's over, I will say, as a seal to the vows, these rings are given and received. Now, if it's, can I suggest that maybe the best man should have the rings, and the best man would pass over the rings, and I would speak to him before the ceremony starts. So I'm going to look at him straight, and I'm going to say, as a seal to the vows that have been taken, these rings are given and received. And that's his cue to give to the groom the bride's ring. The groom puts it on the bride's finger. The best man waits till it's on the bride's finger, and then he gives to the bride the groom's ring for his finger. Now, for example, if there's 2 best men, it might be that you give each of them the ring. So we'll say the one that's nearest, we'll call him best man A. Best man A gives to the groom the bride's ring. And when it's on the bride's finger, best man B gives to the bride the groom's ring. It's a way of involving them both. You'll then pronounce husband and wife, kiss the bride. Now, after which, should you wish to have a reader, or 2 readers, or even 3 readers, that is perfectly permissible. It can be something out of the Bible, it can be a poem, it can be whatever. If it's 1 reader, I would say after kiss the bride, I will cue that reader in. If it's 2 readers, after kiss the bride, reader 1, some words from me to split it up, and then reader 2. If there were 3 readers, I would have a reader just before we do the vows. Now, it would be very, very helpful if these readers could identify themselves to me before the ceremony starts. So you tell me, Mary McGinty's reading, that's great. So before the service starts, Mary comes up and says, oh, yeah, hi Ian, I'm Mary, I'm reading. Fine. Where are you sitting, Mary? She tells me, and I'm able to look directly at her and say, we're now going to ask Mary to read. After the readers are out of the way, there would be a short prayer of blessing, and then we would sign the marriage schedule. After that, I would get you all arranged down here, and I'll go through that, and then we would exit. And I would give to the best man normally the marriage schedule, for that has got to be returned to the registry office within 2 or 3 days. Hopefully that makes total sense. How often have you heard it said, oh, the bride should be late? Fair point. But what does late mean? I think if the wedding is at 2 o'clock, the bride should not be walking down the aisle at 5 to 2. But equally, I don't think she should be walking down the aisle at 2:30. Bear in mind that even if you try to be in time, you will be late. Now that sounds strange, but let me tell you why. If you aim to be at the venue at 2 o'clock, whenever you arrive, the photographer will want to take pictures, and that takes time. Probably your bridesmaids will want to just make sure that your headdress and your dress is just perfect, and that takes time. I would say if you aim to be at the venue at 2 o'clock, there and thereabouts, it's going to be 10 minutes at least before you walk down the aisle. I don't know what happens, but it does take that time. So I'm suggesting that you should try to be there reasonably on time. Now, sometimes catastrophes happen. So it would be quite good if there was something desperately wrong, a car had broken down or something, that you make contact with someone who's in the venue. Particularly this coming year, where there have been a lot of rearranged weddings, it is possible I may have another wedding on that day. So all I'm saying is help me out and help the other couple out if you can try and be reasonably on time. I think 5 minutes, 10 minutes, quarter an hour is fine. Once it goes beyond that, I'm just not so sure. I will say to you, and I'll say with great regret, because I've had weddings that were over an hour late for no excuse and no apologies. After 30 minutes, I reserve the right to go and do the other wedding and then come back and take your wedding. So it would be really helpful, unless there's some catastrophe, as I say, if you can try and be reasonably on time. So just lastly, thanks for listening to me. I hope that's as comprehensive as it can be. If there's anything else, by all means, email me, Rev Ian Miller, REVIAN MILLER @btinternet.com, or phone me at 01389 753 039, and I would hope in some way to set up some kind of meeting, either by Zoom or FaceTime, just to speak to you. But at least, if you watch this, it gives you some food for thought. And thank you very much for allowing me to participate in your wedding. Take care.